You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christie Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hello. Welcome back to the show. Today I'm joined by Amber de la Garza, the productivity specialist. Amber is a sought-after coach, trainer, speaker, writer, host of the Productivity Straight Talk podcast, and creator of Leverage Lab. She helps business owners improve their time management and elevate their productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most. This episode, as you can imagine, has me thinking a lot about productivity, and I'm noticing that for me, my mind always associates productivity with doing more, getting things done, checking things off a list, growing the business, making money, doing all the things. And if I'm being honest, as much as I love to be productive, when I think of all of that, it doesn't exactly make me feel great. Because more often than not, I don't feel productive enough. There's always more to do and never enough time to do it. You guys know I'm got 2 little kids still, and it feels really impossible at times to dedicate time to all the aspects of my life. So Amber's take on productivity is different. It's less about how much you're getting done and more about prioritizing your time, freeing up your mental space, and carving out the life you want for yourself. So I think this is going to help us all a little bit. I need to listen to this 8 gazillion times because it's something I'm really grappling with right now. So let's hear from Amber and hear what she has to say about productivity, what it means to her, and how we can be more productive, not just in business, but in life. Here she is. Hey, Amber. So nice to see you. Thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, let's just start with why. Productivity specialist, like why? Is there a story there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a story, right? It may be a long one, but I'll keep it short.
Okay.
I actually was a business coach that specialized in real estate for realtors that were building teams and leveraging through growing a team. But I was a coach that was I was an employee of a very large brokerage in Nevada, California, Arizona. And we had the most amazing coaching program, business systems. And yet my clients would keep coming back to me saying, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so busy working in my business. I have no time to work on my business. I get that I need to do these things and I know that this will help, but I just don't have the time. And so then fast forward, different things happened. Then I went on maternity leave and decided, after maternity and vacation, I wasn't going to go back. And when I did that, I was really like, well, what's next for me? And the thing that kept coming up was that I was seeing these highly successful, accomplished professionals that were really struggling, stressed out. And there was a gap between what I knew was possible for them and what they were actually able to achieve. And that gap for me was clear that it was that they were missing the skill set of managing themselves, managing time, being able to be productive. And so I went on this long journey of really diving in and getting geeked out about time management and productivity to find out is it a gene? Are you born with it or not born with it? Or is this a skill set that can actually be learned? And if it's a skill set, how can I teach, coach, support people who want to learn their skill set of being the most productive selves and managing time? And that was 13 years ago. So that was the little
Yada,
pivot
yada,
point.
yada. Here we are.
And the fast forward zoom. And so 13 years later, I've had my company. I specialize in productivity for small business owners. But productivity really is one of those things that allows us, my belief is, it allows us to show up our best in every arena of our lives, whether that's, being a mom, being a professional, owning a business, our own health journeys. All of it is because I define productivity. I know you didn't ask, but I'll just throw this one in here.
Please. Yeah.
So, productivity is one of those words that I think gets thrown around. And I think
Mhm.
that, depending on what your experience is, everybody has a bit of a different definition.
Mhm.
At the core of it, my belief is that being productive is when you're investing your best time into your best activities. And what that means is it's a framework that can lay over, what is your best time? It's that distraction focused time where you're able to achieve whatever those highest value activities are that propel you towards your goals. And it's a true framework, right? Like I can think of, being a mom when my kid was younger, my highest value activity at 8:30 was tucking him in bed, reading him a book, connecting with him because it was a goal to have a certain relationship with my son, right?
Mhm.
Highest value activity. It was about showing up, being focused, not on my phone, not distracted. There was a ton of other things like laundry that could have been done at 8:30,
Mhm.
but I showed up consistently because I felt that that was the activity that would propel me towards my goal. And the same thing in health and obviously in business. And we can, go in any direction and talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I really like the definition. You're investing your best time into your best activities. And I think you're right. I think as far as productivity and it kind of being thrown around and having a lot of different definitions, I know for me, productivity tends to be equated with money. It
Mm,
tends to be equated with doing and doing and doing.
yeah.
And I'm learning that that is not actually that the going is not actually the most productive thing for me because then I get to one of the other words you talk about a lot is burnout. It's
Mm,
like you just can't keep going at a certain speed if it's not sustainable and you're not, you know, yeah.
yeah. Every aspect of our lives have seasons. And
Mhm.
if you really view productivity is it's about just doing, going, doing more, and that's what quote unquote being more productive is. It's just not natural, right? We have
Yeah.
seasons of our lives, whether that's, right now, I have elderly um family members that I'm taking care of. There was a season where I was a mom and had young kids.
Mhm.
Every season requires something of us. And so not only does what most productive activities mean change, but also like how fast can we run or do we even want to run
Right.
can change. And I'm really glad we're having this conversation because I think that I take a unique perspective on productivity that is really holistic. In my private coaching, you know, I would say about 40 to 50% of the time with my clients, we're actually talking about not doing.
I know. Yeah.
Okay. Like literally not doing to be more productive, whether
Right.
that's not doing because you're asking for help or not doing because those activities aren't actually moving the needle and it's just keeping you busy. Or what does that look and feel like if you're doing less? Can you be less stressed? Can you be more focused? Can you be a better leader? Show up as a better partner and mom. Really, it's about the quality of what you're investing your time in. Not all activities are created equal. And
Mhm.
so finding out what that is for you and being discerning, it all goes back to having a goal. And yes, in business, the goal generally is financial, right?
Right.
But there's also other things that are just as important. that are goals that we all want to pursue. And when we're pursuing those consistently, I think that's being our most productive selves.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think with business, it's like we have to stop and think about some of the things that aren't as obvious that are associated with financial gain, right? So like there are like I'm just thinking of, the amount of times I've heard that if you don't have the white space scheduled, if you don't have the walking time scheduled, you're not coming up with the ideas. You're not, thinking about the big picture, and that's not benefiting your bottom line. That's not helping you at all. That's
Right.
just
Yeah.
keeping you, like you said earlier, in your business instead of working on your business.
Yeah,
Um,
generally being really busy, just doing a lot is short term thinking. I think that if we can shift that to long term thinking, it's like, well, what does my business need from us? Or, what does my family need from us? And, I don't think that ideas come as fluid to take your business to the next level. Just as an example, if you're stressed out, if you're
right.
putting out fires, if you're chronically going from one meeting to the next, like you said, no white space, no space to just be, where I think that a lot of, big wins can come from in our businesses. But in the moment, we're thinking, again, if we can just reprogram our definition of productivity, we think that's not enough, right? For many of us, it's not enough.
Right.
It's not considered productive. But if you think long term, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
And the other side of that you mentioned, so I'll just add to it is, if you're working at a pace, whether it's, professionally, at home, in your business, that is not sustainable, then you're playing a long-term game to burn out. And that's nobody wants that, right?
Right.
Your family doesn't want that, your business doesn't want that. And so what can we do and what decisions do we make today that will allow us to play the long game?
Yeah. I want to ask you, in talking about the seasons, um, any advice for, I mean, me, when I think about how the season I think really that I'm in doesn't always align with what I want to be in. So,
Yeah.
like, I have small kids, and it's getting easier as far as, the time that they are in school or daycare is increasing. They're getting a little bit older, but it's still it's it's still very hands-on, when they're
Of
home,
course.
and there's a lot of stuff that goes on when they're not home. Like, today, I spent 2 hours of my day at the Costco
Right.
unloading. Like, that's not really how I wanna be spending my time, and,
Yet they
so
have to be fed, right?
right, but, like, this morning, I'm literally giving my son pretzels for breakfast because there was, like, nothing in the house, and so it's like, I guess, just over the last year, um that is just the feeling I've been having of wanting to grow, and like on the business side and on the podcast side, and really just step out into that, but knowing that the season I'm in really like requires so much different focus at a lot. Like, I don't know, like, how do I
Yeah.
marry what I want versus what I'm in?
Yes, and I cannot tell you how much gosh, I understand that and I resonate with that so much. So when I first started my business, so again, like 13 years ago, I didn't want to put my son in, daycare. I wanted to wait till he could go to preschool.
Mhm.
And then even when he went to preschool, it wasn't full time at first
Right. It's
because I
like
didn't have a
3 hours.
business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't have a business that could like justify paying way more in daycare or,
Hmm.
preschool than, what my business was making at the time, early days. So I had to be very ruthless with the time that I knew I had and aligning the right activities with those times.
Hmm.
So, when I first started my business, I am not suggesting this at all. Okay. So I'm just telling my story, but I'm not suggesting this.
Okay.
So, you know, before he went to preschool, I would wake up at 3 in the morning and work on my business till he woke up at 7. right? But then that means I was going to bed with an infant at like 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
But that worked because I was so exhausted. I wasn't a night person. There was no way I was going to be putting in some hours after my son went to bed. And that's what I did. And it fueled me because I felt like I wanted to do something outside of just being a mom at that time. I
Mhm.
had these bigger goals that were long term. And I was like, if I just consistently show up and start working towards them, what could that look like? How do I carve out that time? Well, as the business started getting traction, my son went to school 2 days a week, and then it was 3 days, and then it was 5 days. And so
Mhm.
it just naturally grew until he went to kindergarten. But when I had childcare, it was like, what is the best use of this time? Well, I can never take a client when my kid's at home. So definitely client time, right?
Mhm.
So I was trying to align the activities that had the biggest impact on my business with the very few hours I felt like I had that I had support in childcare. As a side note, I have a 13-year-old son. I would give anything to go back to that age. And in the moment, I did not want to be there. I, like
Yeah.
you, I was just like, I mean, I loved being a mom, but I also had these like big goals and big ambitions and, juggling the two. I can't say that I never felt like I wasn't juggling the two.
Right.
Uh, but I knew that I was able to make progress by just being very careful with what I did.
Yeah.
And I also want to say this too is that it doesn't take 40 plus hours to build a business. In fact, there's a lot of fluff in that. There's a lot of
Mhm.
wasted time. There's a lot of going down um, kind of like dead end roads
Mhm.
because we have the time. And so I have found that people either that have a side hustle or that have part-time hours because they're a mom, they can get just as much done because they're so purposeful with that time. Whereas somebody that was like, I have no other obligations. I can work through the night and do all this. Well, is it actually making the same impact?
Yeah.
So that's just encouraging to know that it's not necessarily about the number of hours, but the quality of work, the type of work you're doing in those hours.
Yeah. It's reminding me of Holly Haynes. She does the 8-hour work week, and she scaled her business 6 figures in 8 hours a week for like 6 months. And she retired her husband, she retired
Ah,
herself. Like she just, um,
that's amazing.
it's like you keep finding the evidence that it's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
But I also was just thinking as you were talking too, um, that for me, this is where a lot of the mindset comes in because I I will have really productive hours, couple of hours, and I am so quick to focus on what still didn't get done or what more I
Mm,
could have done rather than look at how much I really did just get done.
yeah.
I'm so quick to do that to myself, and it is brutal because to use your word, it's such a great word. Like, I am ruthless with myself. Like, I am just like, it's brutal, but it's like, I, it's such
It
a
is
practice to
so
flip it.
common. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. It is so common. And again, I'm going to tell you that I see it with my business owners that are working, 60 hours a week when they first come to me, and they're still saying it's not enough.
Yeah.
And I make lighthearted about it, but let me tell you, this actually has some truth to it. If you actually got the to do list done, you'd be out of business. It right? Like, you were wishing that it got done, except
Yeah.
for it's always more is being added to it because we're in motion and we're,
Yeah.
growing and we have ideas, and so if the task list actually got done, it would be a really bad thing, and so,
Yeah.
have you ever heard of the author Byron Katie?
No.
So, she has a book called Loving What Is, and
Mhm.
one of her, sayings and what she writes about is not fighting reality, that when we fight reality, it creates stress. And the reality is the to-do list will never get done.
Yeah.
Okay, you're talking to somebody that is like, my life is working with people in the to-do list for 13 years, never seen the to-do list get done. So if we can just make peace that it's never going to get done, then flipping that and saying, okay, what did I do to move my business forward today?
Mm.
not all the things. Like, did I do one thing to move my business forward? And 2 is a bonus, and 3 is an exceptional day. But can I just celebrate that I showed up today and moved my business forward? And again, the mindset of just creating that thought pattern habit will be tremendous, right? Because when we have these negative feedback loops of this negative self-talk, the impact on that is tremendous on our productivity. And it shows up differently for different people. But when we say we're not doing enough, there's never enough time, um, we literally are like downshifting, and it is harder to show up. It's
Mm-hmm.
harder to get excited about showing up the next day.
Defeating. Yeah.
Yes, very defeating. And when we're trying to do hard things, building a business is hard, managing a family is hard. So, like, when we're trying to do hard things, the best thing we can do is focus on our mindset, because then our actions will be a byproduct of that, right? Our thoughts create our action or inaction.
Yeah.
And generally, the thing that sabotages productivity is our thoughts that create inaction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I know all of this, but how do I keep it more front of mind? Like, what are the ways that I can more easily keep checked into that idea? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like the hustle and bustle is where I it's like a misstep or something. It's like I'll have this interview and I'm like, "Yes, I've heard this, I've read this, and like she's right, I believe you." And then like, 3 hours
You
from
go
now, my
back.
kid will come home from the bus and she's all over the place, and then I got to get the other one, and like we're right back to like chaos. And I don't know, like what do I need one of those like morning journals, and like is that what
Yeah.
I need to do? Like is that
Not everybody's a journaler, but if you're looking for a practical strategy,
Yeah.
I get asked this often. And while like, teach a lot of strategies, when I get asked what's the one that makes the biggest impact,
Okay.
it's going to be to plan your day.
Yeah.
And part of planning, and I know you've heard this before too, everybody has, but if you can
You know
take
I mean that
uh,
as a knock on me,
yeah,
not
no,
you, right?
no, it's all good. Like, but if you can take, well, we've heard planning our day is impactful, but have you heard somebody that specializes in productivity say, well, there's a lot of stuff out there that can help. What if there was just one habit that you could focus on until it be, oh, no, like one action, this
Mm,
is careful, one action you can focus on until it's a habit,
mhm,
right? Like, getting it to be a habit is like, I call that the paradise zone. You're no longer talking yourself out of it. You're not making it, you like, you wouldn't end your day. You're going to feel like you were naked. Like, oh my gosh, something, is wrong.
right.
But it takes consistency over time to get there. And if we can carve out 10 to 15 minutes to review our current day, I have 5 steps. I teach it on my podcast if anyone's interested, but it's 5 simple steps in under 10, under 15 minutes, around 10 to 15 minutes. And essentially, as you're reviewing your current day and grabbing all those new tasks and ideas and things that come into our world, and then you're making a plan for tomorrow. And the plan is 3 things. And when are you going to do them? And how long is it going to take? And so it's a bit of time blocking, but a different take on time blocking. We're actually going to time block the specific tasks that are highest priority on our task list.
Mhm,
Um, when we're talking about being our most productive selves and investing in our best activities, that also sounds, great. But like, what I also understand is that how do we actually decide, of all the things that need our time, energy, and attention,
mhm,
what is the actual priority? Well, practicing that each evening or morning to plan our days, um, let be more. And so, again, back to you saying, I didn't get it all done, or everyone, I thought I could get more done, right? Like, time expands, like all the tasks expand. It's called Parkinson's law. Like, it's never as we perceive it to be. Time is a very abstract thing. When we say these are the 3 or 4 things we need to do, and answer 3 questions: what specifically am I doing? How long am I going to do it for? And when am I going to do it? and then you put that on the calendar. So for example, if you were had on your list, to record intros and outros. For me, I'm a podcaster too, so that takes 30 minutes. Not writing it, my team writes it, but 30 minutes of me just recording it. So what you would see is me putting on my calendar episode 303, intro, outro, 30 minutes. So I know exactly what I'm doing, and it's at 10 a.m., when I'm doing it, and for how long. Once you start visually putting it on your calendar like that, you're taking time that is very abstract and making it concrete, which brings you back to reality that no, you're not going to record an episode, go to Costco, do an intro, outro, check your social media. You're going to be out of time. The kids are going to be at the bus stop by then.
Right.
So then once you start seeing it, you're like, oh, well, this is more important than that. Okay, this is my day.
Yeah.
And so that's how I teach planning your day. And again, I'm going through it really fast because I know we want to talk about other things, but we can link out to that actual episode in the show notes if you're open to that.
Sure.
But planning our days and being specific about what we're doing helps with almost everything we talked about today. Being realistic, understanding time better, helping you prioritize, reducing the stress and chaos, all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the three things because, 3 feels manageable. I'm sure there's a reason you pick 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a lot of where I get stuck is I'll have a plan for the day, like today, where they're at school or wherever a certain amount of hours. And maybe I wake up and I'm not feeling it mentally. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
having an anxious day, or I'm having a more depressed day, or I'm just didn't sleep well or something. And like, it's almost more like as I'm like thinking about it and saying it out loud, it's really more dealing with my own disappointment in how the day might look different than what I planned or what I imagined.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to give myself that break of like, okay, yeah, maybe you are having a day. So don't push yourself. But then I'm disappointed.
Right, right. Well, I have a couple things on that. Again, everything you're saying is like, I think you're speaking for everybody listening because the things you're saying I've heard time and time again. So one, when I was just sharing planning our days, I said you could do it at night or in the morning.
Uh-huh.
Again, the practice, the foundational planning your day works, but you can customize it.
Okay.
And for me, I do not wake up the same way every day. I do
Right.
not wake up like, heck yeah, like ready to
Yeah.
conquer the day
Me
every
either.
day. And
Right.
so if I don't wake up that way, why would I say I'm going to plan my day through that filter of that feeling, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
feeling tired. I didn't get a good night's sleep. Oh my gosh, getting the kids out of the house was a mess. Like now what do I want to do?
Right.
So generally, and we've all said this to ourselves, like today did not go as planned and you're like, tomorrow's going to be a better day. We're always optimistic about tomorrow, right?
Right.
So I like to leverage that and plan our day the day before for tomorrow.
Mm,
And that way, fewer times we're susceptible to saying, well, what do I feel like doing today? Well, what do I want to do? Or what's the easiest thing to do?
mm,
And we start practicing working the plan. And uh, all jokes aside, like I'm a business owner, you're a business owner, we are all responsible for ourselves. But could you imagine working in corporate and your boss gave you like a task list and you're like, I just don't feel it today. I want to do the easiest thing. I just
yeah.
don't want to do it. And so all I'm saying is like more days than not, while honoring our mental health 100%,
Yeah.
can we talk ourselves out of things less if we thought of ourselves as like, what would a star employee be? Like I want to be the star employee in my business.
Mm,
Um, and that little hack, it's like a mindset hack is that you're making the plan the night before through a different lens than what you may or may not wake up feeling that
yeah.
day.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I like that. That's very helpful. I think because you know, I do sometimes wonder if I'm like BSing myself when I
Mm.
say I don't feel like it. It's
Yeah,
like, like I'm almost self-aware to the point where it's like detrimental, where I'm like, I think you might be full of crap,
yeah.
but pretend you're not. So doing it the day before. And I think the other thing I was going to say about that is when I am genuinely tired or just mud or whatever it is, it's usually making the plan that's the hardest part.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
stepping out of the comfy spot on the couch with my coffee to say, get a pen and paper. What needs to get done today? Like that part of the headset just is usually what goes first. So if it's
Yeah.
already done, then yeah, I could see having an easier time like snapping to it.
Yeah. Well, when we also keep things in our head, they're much bigger, right? So
Yes.
we're thinking like we're general usually, and usually it's a project in our head. It's not a task. And so
Right.
one of the things they teach is how to break that down. And so your to-do list might be call so and so,
Right.
order birthday invitations. Like, let's just say we're
Right.
marrying the two together. But what we don't hear, I mean, what we hear in our heads is plan our kid's birthday party. And
Right.
you're like, yeah, I don't have time for that today, nor do I feel like it.
Right.
But if we took the time the night before and broke it down, like, could you order the cake? Yep, that's one call. Could you
Yep.
order invitations? Yep, that's one call. And that's it. What'd you do today? You move that project forward. And tomorrow you get to do it again. But when it's in our heads, everyone does it. It is so much bigger when we keep it in
Totally.
our heads than when we get
Yeah.
it out on paper.
Yeah. Totally. And I like also the what would a star employee do
Yeah.
or be, at least for me, because I'm a type 3 on the Enneagram. I'm
Okay.
like
Yeah.
all the,
All
how
the things.
all the things. I've got all my I haven't been in corporate in years and I still have my like employee of the month awards up here. Like it was a thing,
Yeah.
and that's been one of my biggest struggles of when I performed there, I got a bonus, I got a raise, I got a promotion.
Mhm.
When I perform at home, no, I don't get nothing. I usually get like, here, mommy, wipe my butt, or like
Yeah.
even within the work that I do, it's like the
It's more
accolades have
long
to come
term.
from me, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm no one's like most often, I shouldn't say no one, but like more often than not, no one's like patting me on the back. There's no promotion, there's no raise to get here.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
just me. Um, and so
That's
that's a
why
good
I
shift
think
to think about
yeah.
because
And but
I would push myself for someone else's business, but like why wouldn't I do it for my own?
why wouldn't you, right?
I don't know,
And
Amber.
so, while you may not be getting employee of the month, which you could do that to your business, by the way, wink,
Oh my
wink, like
god.
you could set yourself up with
Stop.
employee of the month.
Stop. I love it. Okay. Uh-huh.
You can create your own rules. I mean, look, if that like I am not opposed to like fun games, funny games. Like you could be like, if I plan my day for 2 weeks in a row, I get employee of the month and ice cream or something. Like what I don't care what it takes.
I
Like
love
what is
this.
the thing you're gonna track? And then you get yourself a little award. I mean, get the kids after school and be like, "We're celebrating mom. She's employee of the month." And they're gonna be like, "What did you do?" And you're like, "I plan my day every day for a month or 2 weeks." Like,
Epic.
lean
I
into
love
it.
that. I love that so much. Because like, this is not necessarily related, but one of the things that I always think about is, every day my husband gets up and leaves the house and they know daddy's going to work.
Yep.
And whether I am working at home or I'm not, they don't really know the difference. And so I don't really know if they
They know you
understand.
work.
Yeah. And it kind of like it irks me a little bit, And so I'm like, mommy's at work.
I love that. Yeah, when my son was younger, my husband's a welder, right? And so he welds, he's a welder. And I remember one time he asked me if I was a computer. Because I was always at the computer working. And it's that moment where you realize like they don't quite get it or understand it, right? And you're
Oh my
like,
god, that's so sweet.
what?
Yeah.
How do I explain what I do?
You're
Okay.
so literal, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
I
Yeah, I
love that.
really like that. I like that because it does, and I've shared this before. There is no shame in my game. I want the star. I want the gold medal. I want the I'm usually talking about it from the point of view of like I want the likes. I
Yeah.
want the views. I want the downloads. And there is like no shame in my game about that. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not doing this, you know,
Just to
just
do it
for
for nothing. Yeah,
fun.
exactly. I mean, I think that it would also be beneficial too, and this is like a bit of coaching, but that you didn't ask for. But also, sometimes when we have goals, they're so far out, it's very
Yeah,
hard to bring them into today to motivate us,
yeah,
and we've
yeah.
heard that strategy too is like, oh, look, just keep an eye on your goals. And you're like, that's freaking next year. That doesn't feel
I
great
know.
right now.
Right.
And so maybe it is something that's more current for you. Like, does having a clear idea of like what you and your business or your home accomplished this quarter, like, is that
Mm,
a short enough sprint or long enough? I have some
yeah.
clients that we focus on month by month. Like, okay, this month has a theme. This month is like, this is what feeling accomplished feels like, to where you get that dopamine hit, you're
Yep.
feeling good, it's close enough that it's clear. And of course, this month stacked on top of next month leads to that 1 year goal. I'm not saying don't have it,
Right.
but it doesn't motivate everybody the same way when the day's hard and we don't feel like doing the thing today.
Right.
So that's just one idea, when we do want to get feeling good and get some rewards on the work we're doing for sure.
Yeah. And you know what? I think something that I hear a lot with the creators that I'm interviewing and talking to is that it is still such a relatively like new industry that you don't always know what the goals are. Like you don't always know. There's no rule, there's no playbook, there's no rule
Right.
book, there's no like and I know there's a ton of entrepreneurs and small business owners who relate, right? Like depending on your industry and your field, but um the idea of like making money strictly off of the internet basically is still pretty new. There's no HR,
Yeah.
there's no yeah, like there's no like how to. And so and every day people are creating their own ways of monetizing.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it's like you sit down and you're like, what are my goals? And to go back to what we are saying earlier, you sit down at your corporate office, you know exactly what your goals are. You know
Right.
exactly who you're serving and why you're serving them and what the things are, what the mile markers are. Like
Yeah,
working for yourself, working online, you don't always know.
yeah.
So yeah, it might
And
be a
I
2 week
agree with
goal.
you. I
It might
agree.
be like
Yeah.
plan your day for 2 weeks. That's a great goal.
I agree with you, and I would say that, probably shockingly enough, other industry business owners feel the same exact way,
Yeah.
right? Like, even though maybe, like, interior design, you're like, "There's so many designers," but d you know this, with your mom
Right.
in her industry, like, there are so many different ways to do it, and most feel clumsy and like, "How do I do this?" And, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna charge," like, somebody said I was great at designing, and then
Right.
I woke up one day and realized I was a business owner, and while I work with all different types of industries, what I hear, and I actually own the domain, is accidental business owner.
Hmm.
That they're like, "I started something because it excited me, I liked it, I was good at it, I'm uniquely skilled at it." You name it. You do that to make money, and then one day you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm a business owner." Like,
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So now how do I actually become the business owner that shows up, is productive, making decisions and time and financials and the planning and the goal setting,
Right.
is a very real thing, and I think that's a skill set that can absolutely be learned, and the first it's kinda like what's that saying? Like, the first step is to admit, okay,
Yeah.
admit you're a business owner, and
Yeah.
then once you admit you're a business owner, however you got here, is identify, okay, so what skills would be helpful in this
Mm,
journey of being a business owner?
mhm.
And I mean, I'm biased, but I feel like learning the skill set of managing yourself and time are really solid
Yeah.
skills to have on that journey.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that really hits for, I think my audience, like admitting you're a business owner, right? Like you just most of the people I talk to, they go online, they make a video, it goes viral, and next thing you know, they've got brands reaching out to them and they
Yeah,
need invoices and it's like a whole
legal
thing.
and
Yeah.
negotiating.
Yeah.
And eventually, it's not just them creating the video, they're going to need team members or
Right.
delegation and all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just to completely counter my previous point, there is so much potential in the fact that there's no rule book and there's no playbook and there's
Yeah,
no set goals. You can
that's
really just
exciting.
make your own goals,
Mhm.
which hits another word that comes up for me a lot in this realm. It's just giving myself permission to make my own goals. It doesn't have to suit everyone. It doesn't have to suit my old bosses that I haven't worked for 6 years that are still in the back of my head. You know what I mean? Like, it's like
Yes.
that permission I think is hard too to overcome of just, "You can do it. You can do
Yeah.
what you want."
I hear that and experience that a lot around schedule, right? Like my schedule should look
Yes.
a certain way. I should work a certain amount of
Yes.
hours. If I don't, it's all the trash talk, head trash talk. Like I'm not really a
Yes.
business, this and that. And what I love to say, and here's some more trash talk that we're talking about. The mental side of it is like, um, I don't like the structure. I like to not feel like trapped in a schedule or it's all of those things. And here's what I say to that. Isn't it amazing that you get to create your own schedule?
Yeah.
Like if you're going back to corporate or for those of you that are listening that are in corporate or some sort of like 9 to 5, like you don't have that flexibility. So if you're a
Right.
content creator or a business owner, like don't fight against it. You get to create it. Like you get to draw the box, right? It
Yeah.
could be a circle or oval or whatever you want.
Right.
You create it and then you're just having to do the thing you said that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So long as you don't fall into the trap of, oh, well, this person's business looks like this or I should be doing that. What do you want it to look like? And then follow that
Yeah.
consistently.
Yeah. I was just saying this to someone the other day, like, when I was working that 9 to 5, whatever, like, all the various different ones, it was I can recall having a lunch break and frantically, like, running to the post office. There was a place that I worked at in Boston that she would do a gel manicure in 35 minutes, like, running to the manicure, like, grabbing my salad on the go, like, all these things, the amount of things I would try to fit in on my lunch break in an hour, and I would get back to my desk and go, "Gosh, I can't wait till I own my own business so that I can just schedule a manicure and go to the post office without feeling stressed and just have it done how I want it done." And, do you think I've gotten my nails done once in this
Ah!
time? Like, do you think I go to the post office stress free? Because the whole time I'm thinking this is a waste of time. I could be doing something else. And I was just talking to someone about this. It's like, it's so messed up. It's like, stop
Yeah.
it. It's like, this is what you wanted.
Yes.
Stop
Yes.
fighting it. Like, what are you doing?
I agree. So it's a good I this was conversation as you get to reevaluate that, right? Is like,
Yeah.
okay, so what did I intend it? So again, around the accidental business owner is like we had this idea of what we thought being a business owner would be. And when it's not, it's stressful, it's all these things. Like that's when my clients come to me. They're like, oh my gosh, like I can't imagine not being a business owner, but this was not the experience I was thinking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
it's definitely a journey. I actually wanted to say something that's gonna full circle from the beginning that's just, like, on my heart. You
Sure.
had asked, like, how I navigated, you know, the drive and the wanting to grow a business and being a mom and a wife and all the things, and I do wanna say I asked for help. And
Mm,
when I first started my business, it wasn't to make 100,000 or 500,000 or 1,000,000. It was like, "Okay, what's the quickest way to pay for more daycare?"
yeah.
And then the second one was, "How can I justify hiring a housekeeper?"
Right.
And I've never gone back, but the reason was is I was buying time,
Yeah.
right? And so if we're gonna work certain days of the week, the kids are home on the weekends, and I was spending all day Saturday cleaning.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Well, I didn't
Right.
wanna do that. So then I found myself sabotaging during the week, doing the chores and cleaning and this and that. And actually hiring somebody to come help with the house bought back time that I could focus,
Mhm.
and do my most productive activities in the business. Those are just a couple things, you could, you know, ask to trade with a friend for daycare. You could, there may be something else that you want to ask your spouse for help, but asking for help, I think, is absolutely critical in us achieving our goals.
Yeah, no, and thank you for saying that. I think it's reminded me of Heather Chauvin. She talked about in her early days, like she would she literally like went and asked how much it would be to hire a housekeeper and then like charged her first first like course that
Yes, I
exact
love
amount,
this.
like, and she just like little by little, like step by step, just like added all the help. And I think it was just with Sandra Funk last week. I was saying that I heard recently this thing and I still haven't gone and looked up the creator who I saw it, who posted it, but it was just so on point. And I think it speaks to what you're saying. Her sentiment was we have to stop telling women that it takes a village. What we have to start telling women is that the village is no longer free.
Mhm.
Budget for your village. Like if you're starting to do
Wow,
it, I was like,
yes.
that is that's exactly it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if we just start talking about it that way, then I feel like there's something that strikes that nerve with women and moms when we like this is getting to a much bigger topic, but it's like when you start to feel like you can't do it all, like what's wrong with me? Why aren't I hacking this? Why aren't I able to cook, clean laundry
Yep,
and grow a
yep.
business? Cause like that's the lie that we're sold, that we can just do it all and like not worry about it. And I feel like that sentiment is like exactly like really what we need to hear. It's like you just have to budget for it, you
Yeah,
know?
and you're redirecting your time and energy. Like, what we think is we have the time and energy to do the grocery shopping, the cooking, the child raising, the house cleaning. I
Right.
mean, the list goes on and on. And oh, by the way, also start this whole new baby over here, which is
Right.
called a business.
Right.
You got to like redirect some of that energy and time. And again, we were talking about seasons. Like, there was a season where I was just trying to get from 2 days to 5 days of daycare. And then
Right.
there was a season where my business was like, I mean, booming. And I was like, what? I have to end at 3 o'clock and then take my kid to jujitsu and this and that. And so I hired help for after school that would help prep for dinner so
Right.
that I could be with my family when I got off at 5 and then had dinner. And that was over, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years. And then my son got older and now he does more chores. And so
Right.
again, it's like
Right.
the dynamics are always going to change. But I think just to your point, always asking, like, what do I need? What help and support do I need for this season of my life or business
Yeah.
and business?
All right, Amber. I have 2 full pages of notes. And I'm pretty sure the "What would a star employee do" is, like, gonna be in a poster somewhere framed right here,
I love
and
it.
I'm definitely incorporating Employee of the Month with some sort of celebration.
Yes.
Love it.
I mean, this could go wild. Your kids could be like, "Can I get like junior employee of the month if I do my chores?" Like, this could go big.
Ooh. Oh. Oh, this is so good. Also, my brain is firing in different direction right now. Okay. All right. Well, Amber, is there anything you wish I would have asked you or anything that you wish we would have really made a point to talk about today and
Oh
really
my
hit
gosh, you
everything?
actually we covered a ton.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for being here. I'm excited to be at, Luann Live with
I
you and meet you in
know.
real life. And then also I have a podcast called Productivity Straight Talk. So if anything we talked about today resonated with you, you want to go deeper, I would just invite that you take a listen to the podcast.
Sure, awesome. I'll definitely link at least I'm sure there's more than one, but at least one or two to get you started on the I have the note on it somewhere.
Yeah, I'll
The
send you the link. It's
simple.
called the 5 Daily Planning Pavers.
There you
Yes.
go.
Yep.
Thank you. Literally, like, look at this page. I'm like, where is
Oh
it?
my goodness. So good.
Where's the note I made on
By the
OneNote?
way, that's how my notes look too.
Well, because it's like I lose. I'm like looking at you and talking, and then I have to circle things that I forget. Oh, it's like a whole thing. Anyway, thank you. Thank you
You're
so much.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I love this take on productivity. It's not about doing more all the time. And this is really relevant for this season of my life. And the biggest takeaway from this conversation with Amber that connects to this is that I'm the one putting all of the shame and the guilt and the pressure on myself for not doing enough. You know, I really need to work on reframing and focusing on what Amber talked about as just doing those 3 most important tasks and breaking them down into tasks that are doable. Man, I need this like staple gun to my forehead. Like pick 3 important things. And even if on days where it's one thing to just be a better parent or move the business forward or be a better partner or whatever, that it has to be enough, and I have to be proud of that and celebrate it and really try not to beat myself up. And I love Amber's idea about giving myself Employee of the Month as a way to celebrate. And I also love, the question of what would the star employee here do today. These are going to be on Post-it notes all over my office because I just think they're so fantastic. They speak to my soul and my personality, and I think will be really motivating for me. So I'm excited to get those little vision board type mantras up in this office and see where it goes, see what happens. If you want more from Amber and you want to maybe meet her, gain some of that knowledge from her brain, pick it apart, and learn how what she does can help you, join us at Luann Live, November 5th through 8th in Orlando, Florida. I'm co-hosting with my mother, Luann Garza. Go to luannlive.com to register. We're going to be doing all things health and wealth, mindset, productivity, tips for our businesses, tips for our life. We're going to be doing really, really great things, and we're going to be helping you determine what you truly need to be spending your time and mental energy on, because that is just probably the most important thing, right? All right. Thank you, Amber. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Garza, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.